There is a thought process that if you're not killing yourself night in, night out as WWE tours the world, then you don't care about your job. Seems pretty crazy to me. There's many ways to approach your career, including one where you're pretty happy all things considered and just want to go along for the ride. Doesn't make you a bad person or deserving of criticism. You just like where you're at, even if that means not as much TV time as before. These are the wrestlers we shall address today who seemingly have seen WWE as a great way to earn a good, healthy paycheck while not having to beat up their bodies as much as they used to. Certainly makes sense. If you have name value and know you're in a promotion that has a pretty big bank balance, use it. Being on the clock while also feeling like you're on holiday is not a bad way to live. I'm Simon from What Culture. This is 10 wrestlers who saw WWE as a vacation. Number 10, Brock Lesnar. A man who gets hate for sorting out the best contract in WWE history? Nope, I don't get it either. Lesnar made it very clear to the company that his role of choice would be that of a part-timer. Admittedly, McMahon's decision to put the Universal title on him for as long as he didn't help, but I don't blame the Beast for that. Who else would turn it down? Furthermore, when you get Brock in the right mood, much as his Raw appearance post Money in the Bank showed in 2019, you usually get gold. He didn't fluke his way into this position. But yes, let's face it, there have been times Lesnar has been brought in for a show and we don't get the conqueror we're hoping for. His losses against Roman Reigns at SummerSlam 2017 and Seth Rollins at Mania 35 certainly did help elevate them to a point. You would assume Brock was motivated for those, as he was at WrestleMania 33 against Goldberg. When you look at the likes of Braun Strowman and The Big Show though, they were kinda just there. And then of course was everything with Dean Ambrose. If you want to suggest that Lesnar was more concerned about UFC during that, it's more than fair. He did smash it when taking on AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan and Finn Balor, but a more cynical fan would say that was on them as opposed to Brock. Slightly unfair, but hey, when you only have to work a few dates a year, someone is always going to say, you're just on extended vacation. Number 9, Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake. When Brutus and Hulk teamed up in 1993, it was seemingly just to earn some cash and of course ruin any plans WWE had with Bret Hart. The Hulkster's love for the spotlight saw him eventually cash in at WrestleMania 9 when he popped out of nowhere to defeat Yokozuna for the WWF title. But even before that, seeing him and Beefcake tussle with and lose to Money Inc. didn't really feel like we were giving this our all. It was just a nice position on the card to enjoy. More evidence for this and why people like making a Mania payday is that afterwards, they were barely seen. Brutus never appeared on TV again before he left altogether in August, which, wouldn't you know it, is also when Hulk left too. The pair did find time to go over to New Japan, and any loyalty to the WWE was put into question when Hogan spent most of his time burying their championship. Given he was the champion, I don't know what that means. Hogan would drop this belt to Yoko at King of the Ring in June before being on the outs entirely. All in all, this run was utterly empty and clearly a way for Hulk to try and have that one last run. He did get it, but it was in WCW a year later. Number 8, Jeff Hardy. When you think of a vacation, you probably hope to get some relaxation time, have some fun, and see your family. Jeff Hardy likely needed all those things in 2003, but found himself stuck in a system that desperately needed him as he struggled with his own personal battles. Being one of the few remaining stars from the Attitude Era meant that Jeff was a commodity to WWE, hence why he was likely separated from brother Matt in 2002. One brother on each brand would hopefully spark some interest. It meant Jeff getting a pretty big push throughout, but it was clear he wasn't himself. Not only did he look like he was going through it away from the ring, but it started to affect his love for wrestling too. Was obvious and understandable. WWE realized this as well as they tried to steer Jeff straight, but when Hardy refused rehab and missed shows, there was little else they could do other than release him in April 2003. It was made clear what the reasons were too, but rather than act as a catalyst for Hardy to seek help, he instead was welcomed into TNA months later. We all know what happened there, and too much partying, for lack of a better term, on the job soon caught up to Jeff. He eventually got through it, but it was a pretty scary time, all things considered, and a reminder of how hard life can be sometimes. Number 7, The Undertaker. A lot of people say The Undertaker should have walked away after his WrestleMania 30 loss to Brock Lesnar. His streak had been broken, and arguably that was the best way for him to go out. Reaction in the arena that night was one of the more real you're likely to see, and it would have left an aura in the air that would have been hard to beat. As we know, he came back, and more power to him. Who the hell am I to tell someone to retire? But there is a consensus that ever since, we haven't seen the dead man at his best. The following year, he beat Bray Wyatt in a contest that many still demand the Eater of Worlds should have won, and there is logic to that given what happened to him afterwards, and the Shane McMahon Hell in a Cell was confusing from start to finish. We still don't know what's in that lockbox, even though that's nothing to do with Taker. The main event of WrestleMania in 2017 was also pulled into odd territory where the Phenom both retired and didn't, and the match with Cena a year later divides people even more. I loved it, some of you hate it, we're never going to agree. He was also present in Saudi Arabia and Australia, but nobody shines on any of those shows, and really it's just been a long transition as Undertaker switched from a full-time guy to a part-time one. Again, he's earned calling his shots, but I guess sometimes that isn't enough. Number 6, Rob Van Dam. When RVD came back in 2013, fans were pretty excited. Not only was he a surprise return for that year's Money in the Bank, but everyone remembered how good Rob Van Dam was. WWE needed a shot in the arm, and Mr. Monday Nights was surely the answer. The problem with Rob was that before in the WWE, he'd always hit some kind of wall. The rumours of Triple H holding him back weren't helped when RVD crushed the game's larynx at the first Elimination Chamber in 2002, and his 2006 championship run imploded when he was arrested for drug possession. As you can imagine, that didn't go down well with WWE officials. From here, he settled into a nice role in TNA in 2007, and it was that version of Van Dam we got in 2013. Knowing what his role was, he served as somewhat of a gatekeeper between the stars of old and the stars of tomorrow, and by the time the summer rolled around, he was gone again. It was almost as if he was there just to serve a purpose. So easy money was how this was pitched, and maybe that's what it was. If you're in the mid-card and have been told you're there to help others, it would make sense to coast a little and do your job as best and as safely as possible. He may come back to WWE one day, but if he did, it would likely be more of the same. Number 5, John Cena. If anybody was mad that John Cena finally stepped away from the main event scene in 2017 to pursue a movie career, they can't have been paying attention. For better or worse, Cena had kept WWE together for far longer than anybody else in the modern day, even earning the Babe Ruth moniker from Vince McMahon. That even played out at WrestleMania 35. Few people have run as long as John without skipping a beat. Before he started to ease into this role by getting his record equaling 16th title win in January, something he gave up 3 weeks later to Bray Wyatt, Cena was being used for all his worth, although some thought this didn't go across the board. Programs with Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns had Cena being accused of having his eyes elsewhere when he could be turning these men into superstars using his own star power. We've mentioned the whole Undertaker thing at WrestleMania 34 already, and this year he just had fun with Elias, but really his last true shining light was when he dragged the US title up to new heights, and it's that which most fans wanted to see again. It's not going to happen, but it's also responsible for the fallout that swam around Cena's feet a couple of years ago. Number 4, Sid. A lot of people want to tell you that Sid Vicious / Sid Justice was one of the worst wrestlers ever. Poppycock. He was never going to put on a 5-star classic in the Tokyo Dome, but he knew what he was, and he did that well. No one was more nuts than Sid, and you totally believe he could destroy people on a whim. When we're referring to holidays in the man, though, we're talking about his love for softball, and you heard that right. Despite being pushed twice as a Mania headliner and winning the world title more than once, Sid loved nothing more than not appearing on wrestling shows so he could play a different sport entirely. I mean, fair play to him, I guess, but that to me sounds like a man who sees wrestling as his downtime as he prepares to go and smash a ball with a stick. He had such value in the industry, though, that other companies still wanted him, hence why there were wars between WWE and WCW to get his name signed to a deal. That didn't mean much, because before long he'd just go back to softball. So weird. It underlines how you can make your own path through life, and while he did get punished for doing this, he always found a way to make it right. Kinda not. Number 3, Stone Cold Steve Austin. A controversial entry, and personally one I don't agree with. I love Stone Cold as the Sheriff of Raw much as I love his heel run in 2001. Crazy, I'm not going to take things serious, Steve Austin was entertaining and different. Two things that I like. That is not a universal opinion, however, made clear when Triple H himself said the opposite to the rattlesnake. The game thought it was hilarious that this was how far Austin had fallen and wasn't shy in telling him, a point that many fans agreed with. This was the best of the best just mucking around, even though the reason he was doing it was because awful injuries had brought his in-ring career to an end. I mean, what do you want him to do? Just vanish? It's definitely more fun to tear about on an ATV. Stone Cold was also necessary star power in 2003 as WWE tried to rebuild the company, but yeah, I imagine being the GM is far more of a holiday than having to be punched in the face day in, day out. It's hard not to enjoy it, on my end at least, when the whole time Austin looked like he was having the time of his damn life. Number 2, Hawk. 1992 is an interesting year in WWE history anyway, but a real standout is what happened to the Legion of Doom in those 12 months. While it wasn't as bad as a few years later when it was decided to focus on Hawk's real-life alcohol issues, it was decided that 2 years since arriving in the company, the team should be treated more as a joke as opposed to a pair of badasses that could end you. Manager Paul Ellering was given a ventriloquist dummy, and we still don't know why to this day, and seeing the writing on the wall, Hawk decided he would work down to these expectations rather than fight them. Cutting back on his trademark intensity and going through the motions, he would leave the company after SummerSlam, in which time he also fell out with partner Animal, or so it is said. I would assume one wanted to try and keep the power of LOD alive, whereas the other had already checked out. If he was going to be treated like a fool, he would act like a fool. Disillusioned would probably be the best word to describe it all, and it was a far cry from the imposing figures that had torn it up both inside and outside the WWE. They don't call it a Road Warrior pop for nothing. Number 1, Shinsuke Nakamura. Coming straight from the mouth of Dave Meltzer, who described Shinsuke Nakamura's WWE run on Wrestling Observer Radio as him taking a vacation to balance out the physical, demanding New Japan Pro Wrestling style, it's now an opinion which flutters around the internet. There is some evidence there since his 2017 NXT departure. Nakamura's matches often seem to dip below expectations, leading to the question as to whether this was him just taking his foot off the gas or realizing how he was seen in WWE and following suit. When motivated, he's unearthed a King of Strong style that lurks within, but those moments have been fleeting since his call-up. The 2018 Royal Rumble win generated a dream match that was not realized at WrestleMania with AJ Styles, and from here he's pretty much lost every bout he's been in. He'll turn 40 years of age in 2020 and seems to really enjoy his surfing and off time without impairment. He's rarely injured too, and apparently his family loves living in Florida. This to me says he's happy, and if true, well, that's more important than anything, especially if he's on a permanent vacation. Know of any other wrestlers who saw WWE as a vacation? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles, and follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. My name is Simon from What Culture, and I'm always on vacation in my heart.